Good morning. Now and again, in the often dull and unglamorous business of civic election, a blunt, bright spark appears. And this morning we're going to show you how to lose a nomination in one simple lesson by the other Fotheringham. And also this morning I expect some fireworks from Cope's Harcourt. Michael, the man who's going to knock off, he thinks, Zlotnick, the self-destructor, and Volrich, the good old NPA old-timer. And for a change of pace this morning, you're going to meet the incomparable Nana Mouskouri. Webster-style interview. Not bad. Fans will love it. And more seriously, fortunately, hypothetically, invasion. What to do if the invader comes, with Major Kenneth Macksey, who's written quite a frightening book on what could have happened in England in July 1940. But first, the other Fotheringham and Cope's Harcourt. When the other Fotheringham, Allen, was writing his column from Vancouver, he destroyed the NPA on a number of occasions. I remember him chasing one candidate for mayor right off the scene. Sally Fotheringham, the other one, was asked by NPA and Team to go for park board. She accepted Team's executive invitation, and here's her speech last night.
I promise you two things. I won't accept any leftover ladies' Japanese watches, and with your support tonight, you'll get a fighting Fotheringham down at Parks Board. I could stand up here and tell you that I'm for all the standard motherhood issues. More parks, pay tennis, cycle tracks, Champlain Heights, seawalls, less vandals, and on and on. However, I have worked very hard over the last 10 years in children's sports in this city. I've seen the Parks Board build lavish, luxurious facilities, and then, once they're built, promptly forget who they were built for, hoping some volunteer dad or mum will run the athletic programs in their magnificent monuments. Well, the volunteers have run the programs all right into the ground. Soccer, enrollment dropping, grass hockey, lacrosse, figure skating, all struggling. Little League Baseball saved me. Ice hockey almost dead. I've appeared before the Parks Board, been appointed to their local boards, petitioned City Council for grants, only to see all my work slowly going down the drain. Because the Parks Board has been too busy monument building and too lazy to organize instructors to teach the basics of sports to our children. I've tried to improve the system from the outside, and with your endorsement tonight, hopefully I can do it from the inside. It's only the children's future at stake, and after all, it is called the Vancouver Board of Parks and Recreation.
Let me explain. That was at the NPA nominating meeting last night. She had been asked by the executive of both Team and NPA to run. That speech, not a bad speech, was made at the wrong time. It should have been made after she received the nomination. She was rejected by half a dozen votes in something less than 200 votes cast. Sally Fotheringham is a very outspoken person. I don't suppose she cared really whether she got the nomination or not. But that is a good example of how to lose a nomination after you've been chosen by the executive in one easy lesson. Bravo for Sally. At least she spoke her mind. I don't know if she's right or if she's not, but it sounds right to me about the state of the Board of Parks and Recreation. Now, maybe she should have run for mayor without, he's going to try to tell me, any official endorsation. He being Michael Harcourt, whom I called with malice and deliberation, don't know why, because you're not a bad guy, Cope's Harcourt.
Unfair, Jack. Totally unfair.
Well, they want you in.
It's not true. Well, there's a lot of people in the city that want me in.
You and Harry Rankin and Erickson?
I have been endorsed. Let's get it straight.
Okay,
Just
get
so
it
you
straight.
don't say that again.
Okay, right. Put me straight.
I have been endorsed by the Vancouver and District Labour Council and will be endorsed by a number of other community groups in the city over the next month. I have not sought, nor have I been granted, Cope's endorsation. period, exclamation mark, end of that sort of remark.
But you will welcome their campaigning support and their votes at the right time.
Well, I'll tell you what I welcome, Jack. I welcome the majority of people in this city getting the city back. And those candidates that support a ward system and the majority vote on that, a good public transit system, sensible development and taxation, and decent housing for people are ones that I can get along with.
You are a lawyer, Mr. Harcourt.
Absolutely.
You are capable of answering a direct question directly.
I just did.
Right. No, you did not.
I said I haven't been endorsed by COPE, Jack, and I corrected you on that.
Look, I think you're a bright guy who's done a lot of good things for the city.
Yeah.
But let's not lay it on the line. But you are looking for all the NDP votes you can get because you are an NDPer.
What's that got to do with COPE?
Well, nothing to do with COPE. I'm establishing that you're looking for NDP votes.
I'll tell you where my
that
votes...
you will be the first
do you wanna know where my votes
Democratic
come from?
Socialist mayor of Vancouver if elected.
Second.
Will be the Lyle Telford.
Right.
That was 50 years ago.
Well, it was 40 years ago.
Did COPE
1940.
nominate another mayoralty candidate?
Not that I'm aware of so far.
What do you mean not that you're aware of? You know fine
Well,
they
the
did.
nominations don't close, Jack, until October the 27th.
Harry is not running for mayor. Rankin. That's,
Right.
You know,
Right.
from Vancouver, you know, the
Right.
incomparable, long-winded Harry. Harry is not running for mayor. COPE are not putting up a candidate for mayor. You're endorsed by the Vancouver Labour Council. You are an NDPer.
Right.
Right or left-wing NDPer?
I'm a moderate New Democrat.
You're a
Moderate New
moderate New
Democrat.
Democrat. A socialist. A decent Labour Party type socialist.
Close to where you've been most of your life.
You're saying yes to my question, Harry?
Yes, and I'm saying close to where you've been most of your
How
life.
do you know where I've been all my
I know
life?
you're a closet New Democrat. I've
I'm
said
a
that to you before.
provocateur as well, you know. How would you describe, what's his name, Volrich's politics?
Vorich is a federal right-wing liberal who shifted over towards the conservatives when he saw Joe Clark having a chance at it, and a provincial Socrat.
Good free enterprise.
Same as Marty Zlotnick.
Same as mine.
Same.
Who? You haven't been sued or anything, have you?
No, I haven't.
With
I
Zlotnick?
haven't.
Got the rest issued.
But they're both the same, Jack. They both come out of the same mold.
Okie dokie. What shall we do in the way of issues? Oh, first of all, when elected, if and when elected as
When
mayor
elected.
on November the 15th, is it?
15th.
You will be without formal support from anybody on the council. Is that correct? You'll be a lone mayor fighting an NPA-dominated right-wing type council.
Well, first of all, it's not going to be an NPA-dominated council.
How many have they got now?
They've got 7, but one of them is going to go Jack Volrich. That gets them down to 6. And I think that there's a pretty good chance that another 2 are going to go. And we're going to have a mixed council, which isn't bad, Jack, for the last at-large council, elected
What do
council
you mean
in
the
the city's
last
history.
at-large elected council?
1982, we're going to have a ward system. We're going to have people elected from the neighborhoods of this city. As the voters determined in 1978, you recall a majority of people voted to bring in a ward system, and I'm going to carry out that pledge.
You can only carry out that pledge with the approval of council.
As far as I'm concerned, the people have spoken. They said 52% bring in a ward system. I'm going to approach the provincial government to change the Vancouver Charter to bring in a ward system.
Can you do that as a lone mayor without the majority support of council? I mean,
The people have already
I'm asking you a
spoken.
legal question now.
Well, I'm going to approach the provincial government, Jack. It's not a legal question, it's a political question. And the people, the majority of them, a comfortable majority, far more than elected most aldermen and Jack Volrich last time, voted to bring in a full ward system. And I'm going to respect that.
So therefore, that's one, at least
Right.
one firm pledge.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't succeed, you'll try and bring in a full ward system
1982,
as mayor.
1982, we'll have ward elections and get rid of the silly ballots that we have right now with 120 names on it. It's the worst electoral system in the country.
Only 52% of 1/3 of the total voters said ward system. Am I correct?
And less than that elected the alderman and the mayor.
That's right. If people don't vote, they lose their democratic
Our
right
system
of choice.
is based on people exercising their franchise, and those that do get the decision.
Are you still bitter at Volrich for not going along with your plan to extend the registration time for voters?
Well, I'm not bitter at Volrich. I feel sorry, Jack, for the thousands of young people that turn 19 after the crazy cutoff date of August the 21st. I feel sorry for the new Canadians who become citizens after August the 21st and can't vote, and the thousands of newcomers to the city who become interested in the campaign after the summer gets over and aren't on the voters listing.
How many should be on that are not on?
Oh, I think there's another 20 or 30,000 people out there.
You ran a somewhat enthusiastic campaign, though, to get people to sign up who were eligible.
Very successful. Very successful. We added, and this is something I think Jack Vollrich should be very concerned about.
He's anti-democratic, isn't he?
Absolutely.
I thought you'd
Absolutely.
say that.
You know what, let me tell you what we did. What's
I have a
happened.
bulletin for you.
37,500 new registered voters this time. The voter total went from 255,000 in 1978 to 292,000 this time. 34,500 of them are tenants.
But we'll be lucky if 100,000 vote.
Oh, I think we'll get well over 100,000.
I have a bulletin for you. Bruce Erickson of Cope just phoned and has reconfirmed my thought that Cope has already said they are supporting Harcourt. Now, are you happy about that?
Well, what I said,
That's a committee
what I
of
said to you,
The Committee of Progressive Electors.
What I
Harry
said to you-
Rankin's
what I
organisation.
said to you, Jack, is that I have not been nominated or endorsed by Cope. I have not sought it.
Why are you shy about it?
I'm not shy about it. I'm trying to get it. I'm
Do
trying
you
to.
thank Bruce for phoning up to tell us that they are supporting
and
you?
Bruce, as I said to you, has a 50-50 chance of becoming an alderman this time.
Do you
He
thank
has
Bruce
an
for
excellent
phoning up
chance.
and making it clear that they're
Well, I
supporting
made it clear
you?
before you that I am going to be supported by them, but I have not been nominated or endorsed by them.
Stop
Big
me from,
difference.
Stop me from
Big
being
difference.
so petty-minded. I was petty-minded in that. You will forgive me. We'll come
This
to
time,
another
Jack, I
major
will.
issue, which you are determined to stop happening in Vancouver if elected Mayor Mike Harcourt on November 15th, after the break. Mike Harcourt. Yeah, running for mayor, aren't you? Mike, you've made a pledge that you will do everything you can to file a great development on the north shore of False Creek for 1986 called Transpo 86.
That is the dumbest idea, Jack, that's come along since the Montreal Olympic Stadium.
Are you talking about the downtown stadium, or are you
No,
talking
I'm in
about
favor. I've
Transpo?
always been in favor of the downtown stadium.
Well, so
With
has Jack
baseball in
Vollrich.
it.
Vollrich
Oh,
is
of
always.
course he is.
It says here
Of course
in the
he is.
NPA report that he was a man who backed the downtown
That's
stadium.
right. He backed it into the multiplex at the PNE and held the damn thing up 2 years without baseball in it. Can you imagine? And then on the front page of his campaign literature, shows him pointing at the stadium that I've been in favor of for the last 2 years that he's opposed for the last 2 years.
Stadium will cost how
That
much?
is the ultimate in sleaze, as far as I'm concerned, Jack.
What a dreadful thing to say about
Well,
your
it's true. The
opposition.
guy slides in and off of other people's bandwagons.
Say it
instead
again,
of-
in case I didn't get
It
it
is
right.
the ultimate in sleaze. I said it a month ago, and I say it today.
What was that you
Jack
said?
Vollrich has a
Be careful
sleazy
now.
approach of getting
Oh.
on and off other people's bandwagons, and I said it before, and I'll say it again.
You're mad about his
You're darn right I am.
vault face on the
He
stadium.
just oozes on and off of other people's bandwagons.
Mr. Vollrich, please, this is a gentlemanly program. Don't like that kind of rough talk.
Well, you know, if he's going to be an honest politician, fine, but if he's going to slide on and off of other people's bandwagons for his own political
Have
convenience...
you never done the same kind of thing?
Jack, I've been in favor of that stadium from the beginning.
Have you never slid off and on bandwagons?
I try and think through my own ideas. That's why I run as an independent for the last 3 elections, Jack.
Stadium, you're all for it. Providing the provincial government
And
pays
provided
a
it's
shot.
got baseball in it.
$100 million, maybe.
I think we should get some private money into that stadium. The taxpayers shouldn't pick up the whole loot. And they shouldn't pick up all of the cost of the Trade and Conference Center either. Nor should they pick up all the cost of the LRT line. Those are the 3 major public expenditures I want to see.
Well, let's go through it one at a time.
Right.
Because I'm easily confused. Pier BC,
It's going to cost $60 million.
at least.
We have $43 million of taxpayers' money in it already. That's it.
Which taxpayers?
Federal, provincial, municipal.
43 million.
The balance should be paid by the hotels and the restaurants and the other benefiters in
Vollrich
downtown.
said to me that
Yeah.
the city will break even because of the increased tax rates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Not true.
Will there be a deficit carried by the city of Vancouver
Yes.
taxpayer?
Capital and operating.
How much?
The capital could be anywhere up to $15 to $20 million. And the operating deficit, our Director of Finance originally estimated for the first 2 years at $600,000 to $1 million.
Didn't he change that report and come out even later on?
I can't keep up. He's got so many reports and different ideas flowing around on it that
But
it's
you
totally
are committed
confused.
to
But I'm
cooperate.
saying I want the Trade and Conference Center built on Pier BC with a park on the roof and no hotel and office building on the roof.
Too late.
Not too late.
What about the huge marathon office block behind it?
back down to what we have in our zoning. The rules say 300 feet maximum, not 460, blocking off the mountains and the views.
So if you get in, you'll put your oar back in there and attempt to change the plans.
To what the majority of people want.
Grace McCarthy will hate you.
Well, I'm not sure that that doesn't already exist, but I think that the people of this city, Jack, are proud of the mountains and the view, and we're going to get back to the heights that we've already got. Follow the rules, I say to CPR and Marathon. Follow the rules, don't make your own.
Okay, downtown stadium.
Downtown stadium, we've got $50 million of provincial money. We should get $25 million federal to pay for the exhibit space that's linked to the Trade and Conference Center in the Pier BC, and we should get at least $25 million from the private benefiters. That would pay the whole shot. No municipal tax money at all.
And the one thing you're committed to destroy are the
Transpo.
provincial government's plans. Would you let me finish my sentence, please? I'm conducting this interview.
Certainly.
Destroy the provincial government's announced plans for Transpo 86.
Jack,
Approved by the World Fair people.
You know what I want to go back to? I want to go back to the city's plans on the north side of False Creek since 1975, which is to build housing for 8,000 to 10,000 people. That's what that land's owned for.
What, $300,000 condominiums?
No, for ordinary working people that are right now almost out in the streets and facing 160% rent increases, and young families that can't find a house they can afford. We should be housing the people that need it, Jack, not building a second-rate, Class B, World's Fair to advertise the worst transit system of any major city in Canada. It is a joke, Transpo. You know what they want to build as the highlight of Transpo? You won't believe this. A $65 million moving sidewalk around downtown Vancouver.
Underground, of course, beside the Pacific Centre.
The whole thing is so crazy. No wonder the public's
Who wants
confused
to
about
do
it.
that? Is that Manning's plan?
That's the province and Jack Ulrich's plan.
It doesn't Manning.
It's crazy.
Isn't Paul Manning the fellow in charge of something?
He's just a civil servant. He just follows orders. If they took the $180 million they want to blow on the Annacis Island freeway crossing,
They being the provincial government.
provincial government, and put it into the Patello crossing with LRT, they took the $65 million for the people mover and put it into the LRT, and they taxed the property owners around the major stations that are going to service the LRT. We could pay for the whole Surrey to downtown Vancouver LRT line.
My only concern about you, with your great ideas,
Yeah.
is that here are you totally in opposition to the major plans of your political enemies, Social Credit in Victoria, who hold the purse strings, build the bridges, and subsidize some of your grandiose plans. That's going to be very difficult.
I don't have grandiose plans, Jack. My campaign is based on getting back to basic needs.
Okay,
Transit,
basic-
jobs, housing,
Go on.
basic needs,
Ward system.
and bringing in civic democracy. You know, people say to me, you don't have a chance. They said that to me when I opposed the freeway system through Strathcona, when I opposed those huge monolithic public housing projects instead of preserving neighborhoods. We won that time, and we're going to win this time.
The Chinatown Freeway thing,
You're right, which would have been a disaster.
10 years ago?
Absolutely, and they're bringing it back through Boundary Road and the Annacis Island crossing. And I'm going to stop that. And bring in good public transit. Good public transit is what we need in this area, not more freeways.
Lots of buses.
400 more buses.
LRT.
LRT and a decent handicap system and a custom handicap
Why do you want
and
a
seniors
handicap? Oh, a system for the handicap.
for seniors and handicap.
How far can you go in these social obligations to people?
Well, it's a question of priorities, Jack. Do you want to waste money on
What is it-
$65 million moving sidewalks or building an LRT line?
If that's true, which I find hard to believe.
It's true. It's true. Jack Ulrich wants to spend $1.5 billion, $1.5 billion of taxpayers' money.
He denies that. I
He
put
wants-
that to him,
he
$1.5 billion.
wants to build two LRT lines.
He said nonsense.
Let me go through it then. Whenever he gets confused, he says nonsense and huffs and puffs.
I'm
Let me
not
go through
quoting
it
him
for you.
precisely.
Let me go through it. He wants to build two LRT lines, which are going to cost $700 million.
Marpole and Westminster.
Right. I just want to build one from Surrey to downtown Vancouver. He wants to put in Transpo, which is $200 to $300 million. He wants to put in the stadium, which is going to be at least $100 million. He wants to put in a $60 to $70 million trade and conference center with the park ruined on the roof. He wants to put in a federal government building at $100 million. He is encouraging the provincial government to build the Annacis Island crossing by rezoning Boundary Road to a
I've
8-lane
got that.
freeway.
But don't you think you're getting a wee bit big in the head thinking that you can beat a very stubborn, blacktop-minded, monument-minded social credit government into the ground?
Done it before.
To come out with your
Done it
kind
before.
of humanitarian-type issues?
It's not it's humanitarian and back to basics. Sensible taxation and spending.
One more session with Mike. We might have a chance for some phone calls, Gladys. Gladys? Might have a chance for some phone calls. But I want to try and you tell me how you as Mayor of Vancouver can supply any housing cheaper for anybody in the present market unless you're going to go into the British system of subsidized, heavily subsidized scheme housing. After the break. Can a Mayor of Vancouver have sufficient clout money to supply cheap rental housing in the admittedly grave vacancy housing crisis in the city of Vancouver? Please be specific and precise and succinct.
The answer to your question, Jack, is a succinct and precise yes.
Where do you get the money?
Federal provincial governments, we've done it before. We developed two of the biggest and best housing projects in the country in Champlain Heights and Falls Creek, 3,500 housing units, 2/3 of it for low and modest income people. While I've been chairman of the city's housing and planning committees, we have doubled the number of senior citizens units from 3,500 to 7,200. We've added over 1,000 new units of co-op and nonprofit rental family.
Enough. How many more could you add in 2 years if you were mayor?
We have a goal in Vancouver of adding 2,245 nonprofit and co-op housing units a year.
For which the NPA must be given some credit
No,
too.
that's our goal.
But
That's
your goal.
No, that's the goal from 1981 to 1985.
Whose goal? Your goal or the
Right.
city's goal?
That's my goal. The
Your
city,
goal.
the NPA refused to adopt that target.
Fair enough. We'll leave that for the moment.
And I'll tell you what you can do, Jack. When I saw the disastrous housing situation looming, I wrote to Chabot and I said, do something about it, and here's what you can do, and I laid out a whole bunch of specific policies.
I believe you.
I did the same thing with the federal minister, and I got the federal allocation of units up from 700 in January to 2,200 in June. So you can do it no matter whether you're as
Next
Jack...
question,
Yep.
off the topic. Do you approve of the unusual way in which the new chief constable of Vancouver was chosen with only one written application, because they knew who it was going to be, and no applications from outside the force? As I said to Volrich, do you mean that no RCMP need apply? And he said, that's correct. Do you approve of that? I'm not in any way casting aspersions on Bob Stewart. He's an excellent policeman. But let me finish this. No aspersions.
Right.
It just sticks in my craw when you have a key job in the country, one of the 10 top police jobs in the country, and there's no outside competition even offered.
Okay, let me say two things.
Two things.
Number one, I believe in hiring internally unless you absolutely have to go outside.
Do you?
Yes. Secondly,
Promotion by seniority in the fire department.
No,
that kind of
listen,
thing.
we have promoted fire chiefs and police chiefs, over 43 other top people. But I'm saying go inside. Secondly, Bob Stewart, as far as I'm concerned, is going to be an excellent police chief.
Quite sure.
Excellent police chief.
And you know, I'm arguing on the point of principle, and you don't agree with me.
I think we've got the best police force in the country, and now we've got the best
You
police
best chief in the
Yep.
country. You and Volrich,
And
therefore,
force.
are agreed on this particular approach
Right.
at this particular time.
Right.
Fair enough. I disagree with each of you. Not violently, but like to make my point.
Okay.
Time for a few calls to
Sure.
the man who wants to be mayor. You never thought of getting a transplant, did you?
Bald is in.
Bald is in. Looks all right on you. You're on camera too for calls. I shouldn't say that because you could make nasty remarks about my obesity.
Oh, and some other bad habits you have too, Jack, but I won't do that.
That's kind of you, and I won't sue you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, gentlemen, on LRT, I'm completely bamboozled by the stuff coming out of the provincial government these days. Evan Wolf especially, and Willie Woodenshoes, that he is going for an untried, he wants to put in an untried Canadian system now after 10 years of LRT planning.
Yes, good point. That's what Van der Zam said here.
Canadian, I cannot understand the thinking of this man after 10 years of LRT planning.
Okay.
40 other major countries of the world can't all be wrong.
It's a stall, Jack. What Bill Van der Zalm wants to do is to stall transit financing until after they've built the Annacis Island Bridge crossing and until after they have put in the freeway system throughout the Greater Vancouver Regional District. This system is, it's laughable if it wasn't so tragic, because it's the key issue in this area. They're going to try out a Grouse Mountain sky ride.
On the ground.
Yeah. The only other place that it's going to be used as an experiment is in Hamilton, where they're going to go 3 miles from a residential area down an escarpment into downtown Hamilton.
Didn't they all go and see it recently or something?
They're still going to go see it. Another boondoggle, waste of the taxpayers' money. Do you want to know something?
But think of that, 10 years of surveys and no decisions.
We know exactly what we have to build.
Okay, fair enough.
All you have to do is go to Edmonton and Calgary. That's exactly what we need. And as the gentleman said, there's 150 light rapid transit systems in place in the world.
Go ahead, please.
We know what we need.
Hello, Jack.
Yes, yes.
You've covered very many worthwhile subjects, and while Alderman Harcourt's on, I'm very interested in finding out whether, A, you will cover the subject of people who are living below the poverty level in Vancouver. In fact, you talk about, the unions, etc., and indeed, Alderman Harcourt has mentioned housing. Now,
Right.
I'm, not by choice, but by ill health,
Right.
existing on $600 a month, of which $400 goes to pay rent.
Yeah.
Is Alderman Harcourt have any provision for alleviating problems of people like myself who would like to work but through ill health cannot? Ex-Canadian veterans who still do not qualify for government assistance other than this $650.
Okay, it's a very sound and solid question with
Jack,
which I'm sure there's total sympathy. It's very difficult for me, if I can answer the question to me first,
Yeah.
to go out and cover in a detailed way the social problems of those living below the poverty line. I should do some and more of it, but that's about as far as I'll go at the moment. Mr. Harcourt.
Jack, the gentleman is exactly the reason that I'm running for mayor. That a city council has got to deal with the basic needs of our citizens: housing, transit, jobs, and for those that have an affliction or can't work, to make sure that they have a dignified way of life.
The only
Instead
thing
of spending money on frills like moving sidewalks and building freeways that are going to destroy our neighborhoods and building second-rate World's Fairs, we should be putting the money into the kind of services this gentleman talked about and tax relief to the ordinary taxpayer.
Do we need the British type? Well, we have some rent subsidies now, but in a fairly small manner, don't we?
Oh, substantial amount of housing is subsidized. Whether we subsidize the developers to build it, which cost an arm and a leg, or whether we subsidize people
But
to
all you can
be
do
able
to
to
offer
afford
the
rents.
helpless man is attempt to get his rent down one way or another.
No, we can do a lot more than that, Jack, and I don't want to see a huge monolithic British-style housing authority. We have a number of service clubs like the Canadian Legion, the Kiwanis, the Lions,
Yes,
who can
yes.
build excellent seniors housing, and I'd find sites for them to build on. We've got excellent co-op groups that can build co-op housing. We have the Greater Vancouver Regional District that can build family rental housing. There are all kinds of existing groups in the city that can build the housing and manage it without building up a huge bureaucracy.
Down the road, there's this fearful vision one has, even if one is left of centre like you, of nothing
And
but
yourself.
a giant, speak for yourself, egalitarian bureaucracy.
No, I don't believe that
The
you have to
dead
go that way.
hand of egalitarian socialism.
You don't have to go that way.
Horrifying to those people who are not living below the poverty
Well,
line.
I don't believe in that system, Jack. I believe that you can do things on a voluntary self-help mutual aid basis, through service clubs, through community organizations, with governments acting as facilitators and not being heavy-handed bureaucrats.
Go ahead, please. Thank you, sir, for your call. Difficult to go short on a call like that. But we do tend to ignore those people living below the poverty line.
I don't. Ever since I've been involved
We
in
as a
public life.
society tend to ignore people, and in the media.
That's right.
You'll accept that,
I accept
won't you?
that. I think that's true.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Harcourt.
Morning, sir.
Yes, in regards to your views on what the incumbent mayor plans to do with the city and your ideas, I take my hat off to you. You are probably the only candidate running that has any sound education and knowledge about what's going on, what would be best for the community, and I think the people of Vancouver would be at a loss if they do not elect you for mayor.
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you very much, sir. I
Thank you
was
very
not a
much
family
indeed.
member either. I didn't recognize the voice, Jack.
You didn't even plant the call.
No, I didn't.
Go ahead, please.
Oh,
Look, what are you going to do about decent housing for single people who are only making minimum wage in this bloody town?
Well, that's exactly what he was talking about right now.
Yeah, well, it's about time something is done. They're putting up new buildings at astronomical pricings.
And they're tearing down perfectly sound buildings that should be saved and should be preserved for people like yourself.
And that's only because they can put up something new and charge an astronomical rate for it.
You're right, sir.
Hold
it's
on,
a
please,
bad
a second.
system, our housing.
Hey, hold
bad
on,
system.
hold on. You have some knowledge of this. When you see the prices that some of...
People can't afford it, Jack.
Who can buy a condominium at 110 or 150 or $300,000? Is it going to collapse? Is it going to crash?
Well,
The market.
I don't know if it's going to collapse, but what's happening is that more and more people are being priced out of owning their own home or are being forced to double up as tenants because they can't afford the rent of a bachelor apartment. So we're finding more and more people to a bachelor apartment. It's going to get worse too, Jack, over the next 3 to 5 years.
Should we stop immigration federally? Should we stop people coming in?
We have. We've cut immigration from 300,000 down under 100,000 in the country over the
They all
last 5 years.
seem to come to Vancouver, though, don't they?
No, they're spread all over the country.
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Last call.
I have 2 questions. Can I ask 2 questions or should I?
Try them one at a time.
Well, the first one is whatever became of the Goals for Vancouver program? Thousands of people, including myself, sent it in.
Okay, what's your second question?
The second question is, and it's a bit indiscreet, but who on earth could one vote for if he gets in? Who would vote on his side in the new council? Or will they be all NPA supporters because Darlene Mazzari...
I like your second question better than your first. The goals for Vancouver got lost in the file somewhere.
Well, no, what happened is that everybody said it was a great idea, and then they started to build huge monolithic buildings that ruin the view and destroy the scenery and destroy the kind of Vancouver people want.
Is it not a fact witness that
Yes,
if
Councillor.
elected as mayor,
Right.
you will have a majority of highly unsympathetic people
I don't agree.
cutting your Achilles
Don't agree.
tendons on every occasion?
Don't agree. I think we'll get back to the kind of mixed council that we've had in the past. And as I said before, Jack, it's only an interim council until we get a full ward system and a decent electoral process in Vancouver.
At least you've been specific on what you're going to try to do. But you'd do better
Well,
if you're running
you know
for
me,
premier
Jack.
instead of mayor.
I've been pretty successful, and when I get determined and set my mind to something, I've been pretty successful at making it happen.
No comment. No. Did a lot of good work in the early days as storefront lawyers. Mind you, your eyes were then set in politics, and you knew which way you were going and why you were doing it.
You know what got me into politics?
No.
Was seeing a bulldozer almost push over an 85-year-old woman that was telling him not to take down her house in Strathcona.
Strathcona. You keep saying Strathcona.
Strathcona got me so darn mad that I got involved in politics.
You were very good on legal aid in the early days, when people like myself and Wasserman nagged the profession into doing something half decent.
That's right.
True, isn't it?
That's right.
Mayor, oh, please forgive me.
I accept it, Jack.
Mayoralty candidate Mike Harcourt. We've got to have Rankin and Erickson on because they've got no mayoralty candidate except you. Maybe I don't need to put them on now that you've spoken so well for COPE issues. Next. What are you going to do if the invaders come? After the break. Thanks. In June 1940, through the letterbox of every house, more or less, in the United Kingdom, came a pamphlet, which, honest to goodness, I can't remember. But here is the pamphlet, and it says, issued by the Ministry of Information, in cooperation with the War Office and the Ministry of Home Security, if the invader comes, what to do and how to do it. And at that time, in July 1940, the government said the Germans threatened to invade Great Britain, and went on to tell them, with a fair amount of optimism, that if they do so, they will be driven out by the British Navy, Army, and Air Force. Then it gave advice to civilians as to what not to do. Well, Kenneth Macksey in my studio now is a retired major of the Royal Tank Regiment, and he did 27 years in the British Army. He's a military historian and biographer, and he has written a book called Invasion. And he takes the hypothesis that the invasion took place. But before we get into the book, Major Macksey, what was the situation in July 1940? Did you realize that Old soldiers do die and many do fade away. But there's generations out there, some of British or European background, who are just as intrigued, and Canadians too, who were in Britain at the time.
Sure.
What was the tactical situation, Major, in July 1940? And what was the name of the operation the Germans planned to launch?
The Germans, in fact, didn't plan to launch an invasion in July 1940. They hadn't really made up their mind then that they were going to do it. They were going to do it eventually in September, and they called it Sea Lion, Seelöwe, or Seelöwe. The tactical situation was this, that the Germans had arrived on the Channel Coast. They'd defeated the French army very largely by then. They defeated the British army. British army and some of the French had been evacuated from Dunkirk, and we had lost virtually all our best equipment in France at that time. Britain, at that moment, to all intents and purposes, with the exception of her air force, and her navy, was disarmed.
Defenseless.
Virtually.
But prior to that, too, again going back a little bit, there had been other major disasters which led to the German invasions through the Low Countries into France.
The disasters came about as a result of the fact that the Germans had a better army and a better technique, and they knew what they were doing. We had an old-fashioned technique, we were not properly equipped, our communications were not nearly so good, and we were defeated by something superior. Blitzkrieg, as they called it.
What was the first action in the war? Do you know? I can't remember.
First action in the war was when the Germans invaded Poland in 1939 and showed what they could do.
And after Poland?
Phony war.
Then when did Norway and Narvik come?
Norway was invaded on the 9th of April.
1940?
Yes, and there I think you can see the beginning of it, because at that particular invasion the German Navy was to a very large extent sacrificed. It lost some very good ships or had them very seriously damaged. The British and French army sent what virtually amounted to token detachments in there to help the Norwegians, but they were swept out in no time. But the British Navy at this time also suffered losses, which it would feel all the way along. So you can say this is part and parcel of the business of the damage that would come later.
The Battle of the Atlantic hadn't got into high gear then.
Oh, good heavens, no. I mean, the Germans only started the war with about 35 U-boats, and they weren't in very good condition, and they were based mainly in Germany, so there were sinkings going on at sea. The Battle of the Atlantic, as we know it, didn't start until really the autumn of 1940.
The autumn of 1940. Now, tell me the story of Operation Sea Lion, though, and tell me, first of all, had they gone ahead in July 1940, what would have happened?
You've got to work on the fact that there are two stories going on in everybody's mind. The first thing in your mind is what would have happened, what went on actually in September. If you take it on in July, you've got another story completely.
Was there an attempted invasion at any time?
No. Although there were a lot of rumours about it at the time and that went round the country. You may remember it. Germans had been found floating in the sea, burnt, and this...
Yeah, the channel being set on fire.
Did not happen.
Bodies being swept ashore on the south coast.
Did not, well, maybe it's for the odd bloke who'd fallen out of a boat or come out of an aeroplane, but did not happen.
And yet people were convinced at that time that an attempt had been made and repulsed. I'm almost sure in saying that, right, Fred?
Well, if Fred was there, fine. But in fact, there were all sorts of rumours. Of course, on one occasion, they rang the church bells by mistake. If you remember, church bells were no longer rung because they were going to be used as the invasion warning, purely a warning. There was a foul up with the signals. It's all in there, but I can't remember the exact details. There was a foul up with the signals. And so one night they rang the church bells in September. So that made some people think that it had actually happened. It didn't.
Dunkirk. Was that a magnificent defeat or just a straight bloody disaster?
There's no such thing as a magnificent defeat.
Well, that's what they tried to tell us.
I know they did, but there was a very good reason for it, Jack. Somehow or other, we had to be bluffed into believing we could win, when there was no military reason to believe we could at all.
Let me stop for a second again, though, because, again, there are thousands of people out there who've never heard the name Dunkirk. Dunkirk was the evacuation with the small fleets of little boats from the coast, from the Channel coast to Britain, in which 330,000 British soldiers...
And French.
And French soldiers.
Yep.
But Dunkirk, the delaying action in Dunkirk must have done some good.
It got men out. It got no material out. And therefore the situation arises that at the beginning of June, when the evacuation from Dunkirk was over, you had a pack of men in Britain without many arms. You had a Royal Air Force which had been run down to the fact that there were only 60 fighters left in reserve, that the squadrons themselves had taken a beating, And they hadn't done as well as some people make it. I'll probably get hung for this. In England, I have to be awfully careful saying this sort of thing, but even over here, no doubt.
No, no, you don't.
But they well, don't worry me, you know, it's a fact of history, this is. They were hammered. The Navy had taken a beating getting them out of Dunkirk, taken a beating getting them
243 ships they lost.
Sure, small ones, a lot of them, but some of the destroyers as well.
6 destroyers.
And they were not in the condition to face up to this sort of thing. And therefore, at that moment, this country was not in good condition. Now, the Germans, they were doing fine. Their losses were not very heavy.
In July 1940, could the Navy have held the Channel, the British Navy have held the Channel clear of an invasion fleet?
It's in the book.
I know it is.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether you want to give away. I think they'd have been pushed, very hard pushed, because already at that stage, the German bombers had frightened the fleet off. Now, there came a moment in actuality at the end of July when there were still 9 British destroyers in Dover. Okay? They were withdrawn under the threat of under the threat of air power.
They went down the Channel away from the...
So they went away from it. Very difficult.
Was that a bad tactical mistake?
It was inevitable. But having done that, it opened the Channel up.
And the Germans, if they jumped then...
They could have done.
How many thousand troops would they needed to have dropped?
Not many. I reckon that if they put, as they could have done, put, say, 1 airborne division in on the first day, which they had, and followed up with a seaborne landing about the same time of 2 divisions, they'd have got a pretty firm foothold.
And would the British population have done precisely what the population of France and the Low Countries did in jamming the roads and making it impossible for the army to move?
There was every indication they might. And this will shake a few people, but at the time of Dunkirk itself, before there was a genuine threat of invasion, we were talking about that pamphlet hadn't been sent out then, already in Dover itself, people were beginning to evacuate themselves. And there was a time when you couldn't get hold of a furniture van because people were on their way with no threat at all, no bombing of anything.
Major Kenneth Macksey, and let's have another chat up on the invasion that almost took place, or might have took place, and we'll tell you what he thinks would have happened had it taken place after the break. Kenneth Macksey's book, Invasion, centres around the disaster that was there in July 1940, and he hypothecates, clumsy word, he writes a good book based on facts about what would have happened had the invasion by the Germans taken place in July 40. Tell me something. You know, it's a long while ago and far, far away. Did Churchill know the truth of the state of British defences?
Oh, yes. Yes,
I sometimes say if he'd known the truth, he might have given up.
I think this was the measure of his greatness. He did know the truth probably better than anybody else, apart from outside the chiefs of staff. Don't forget, he was acting as commander-in-chief, really. He was the man who made the decisions, and if an invasion would come, he would have made the decision because he didn't have anybody else to do it. He tried to get Trenchard to do it, and Trenchard wouldn't, so he did it himself. Yes, he knew the truth, right? It was a marvellous bluff, and it worked.
And this was part of the bluff, if the invader comes, what to do and how to do it.
Oh, that was dead serious. I mean, you had to warn people what you do, but, I mean, if you read that thing carefully, it is absolute nonsense. There's one glorious bit there when it says about, if you see what you believe to be a paratrooper and you're not sure, go and ask a policeman. I mean, take a pick. I mean, and we believe that sort of nonsense. You were there, Jack. I mean, if
you are a garage proprietor, you must work out a plan to protect your stock of petrol.
Yeah.
What the devil could they do except burn it?
Absolutely.
Eh?
You see, the point is this, we hadn't been invaded.
Remember to make sure that no invader will be able to get hold of your cars, petrol, maps, or bicycles.
So you removed the rotor arm.
I suppose you did.
It was cloud cuckoo land.
The sort of report which a military or police officer wants from you is something like this. Forgive me if I read this. At 5:30 p.m. tonight, I saw 20 cyclists come into Little Squashborough from the direction of Great Mudtown. They carried some sort of automatic rifle or gun. I did not see anything like artillery. They were in grey uniforms.
Or dressed as a nun. Usually they were dressed as nuns.
Wasn't funny.
Yes, it was funny in a way, and that's really why we got through.
Was not funny.
Yes, it was. It was funny.
I was briefly in the south of England at that time, and I remember seeing the crippled bombers hurtling back, the British bombers.
Yeah.
Not British fighters, British bombers hurtling back from some kind of raids they were making in the 40s.
It was funny until the bombs started cunning down. then it was shaking. And I think the first time I got dive bombed properly on an airfield was I didn't eat properly for 3 days afterwards. I was so shaken. I was 17. Now, this was the effect it would have been on the British. They would have been shaken. It was outside their experience, and they were. They soon got over it.
Where was the first dive bombing in Britain?
Oh, the first dive bombing was over Dover, in that area.
Oh, no, but the one you were talking
The one I was
about.
at the Croydon Airfield, which was the civilian airport, and it had a couple of squadrons of fighters on it. They hit it by accident. They meant to go for Kenley. They got lost and came in. They were a very good bunch. Came in the evening with no warning at all. 2 squadrons. One was 111th Squadron, a British one, absolutely tip-top. The other one was a very good squadron too, but not considered operational. It was the 1st Canadian Squadron, funnily enough.
They just got there.
They may have just got there, and they stayed on the ground. They weren't allowed to take off, and the bombs came down around them. It's a good start for them. If there's anybody, any Canadians who were in that bunch listening, I'd be interested to know what they thought of that. But that raid got taken to bits. A lot of damage was done, but we were absolutely shaken. Even so, even there, it was funny. You saw us going down to the shelters with no warning, and you saw people cuddling each other who were normally born enemies. It worked.
Yeah, pretty miserable.
What?
Now, September 1940. Give me the German, just a précis of what the Germans were thinking of between July and September and what they did in September.
Let's take it before that, Jack. Before July, they thought we'd surrender, and so there wouldn't be any need for an invasion. Gradually, gradually, as a result of what Churchill said, they got the idea they had to invade. So in actuality, in July, they then planned sea land. Far too late. It couldn't be done before September anyway. Between July and September, he put out a peace offensive to try and persuade us to surrender. Nothing doing.
Was that when Hesse was dropped?
No, that was April 1941. Hesse doesn't come into this side of the story at all. At that particular time, the German Navy was saying, we don't want to do this thing at all. The Army is saying to the Navy, you get us over there, that's fine. The Air Force was saying, we've got to get air superiority first. This is the Luftwaffe. And so they were working their way out to it, and the Battle of Britain started about the middle of July and got into intensity about August and was really going fine in September.
First bombs in London in September.
The first big night was September the 7th.
In the docks.
Yes, in that area around there. There had been the odd scattering before that, of which, of course, you can include Croydon on August the 15th. That is really was just in the London area. But the real bombing came in September. Another story entirely. Because by then the Germans were beginning to lose. They'd gone the wrong way. If they'd stuck to the airfields, bombing those, they'd have won the Battle of Britain, I think, even in September.
The big mistake was in the bombing of the docks in London, therefore.
The bombing of London area, yes, because it meant that they allowed the RAF squadrons to recover, get off the hook, gave the airfields a bit of breathing space, and it also meant their bombers went outside the range of their fighters. It meant their fighters only had about 10 minutes over the capital. No.
And when did they call off Sea Lion?
About the 20th or between the 15th and 20th of September, something like that.
When did they go into Russia? They're talking about the Nazis.
22nd of June, 1941. Yeah. Don't forget, Hitler was talking about going into Russia in July of 40. That's when he first let it be known to his boys that he was going to have a go at that one.
Was he right or wrong?
Oh, very wrong, wasn't he? He lost the war because of it. If he had followed up, as Kesselring wanted, as I postulate here, and Kesselring actually did say at the beginning of June, look, if we get across now, before we bother with the rest of France, get over behind the British and invade Britain now, they might well have pulled it off. Now, okay, if they'd pulled it off, what happens? You've got no Britain, you've got no foothold on the continental side at all. America at that time was in no position to do anything about it.
Hold your breath, we've got a few minutes more. If we take a break now, we've got a couple of minutes more after the break. In the book Invasion, based on the facts known up till 1940, Major Macksey has the Germans successfully invade Britain, correct?
Yes.
Is there in your book much evidence of a fifth column? Was the British aristocracy riddled with German sympathy and admiration for people who made trains run on time and tore the people off the streets and put them in prison camps?
I admit, and there were a few. There was a fascist party in Britain.
That was Oswald Mosley. That was kind of ragtag and bobtail, wasn't it?
Well, it was rough stuff, and it was sufficiently impressive to put the whole lot in clink when the possibility of invasion came. And so there was nothing of great substance there, really. Mosley himself, yes, of great substance.
You do not suggest or predict that, looking backwards, that Mosley would have become the High Commissioner responsible to the German administration the British puppet administrator.
Mosley's still alive and living in France and well. He says he would never have done so. I accept that if he'd said so. I think there's no doubt about it. Whatever you agree with whatever you think about their politics, they were patriots in their way. They just saw things another way. If Mosley says he wouldn't, okay, he wouldn't.
Well, you name a man.
Yes, I do.
You name a man here, and you put him in as the head of the puppet administration when they take the South after the Battle of Maidstone.
Yes.
Yeah. Go on.
Boney Fuller. He was a soldier.
Major General J.F.C. Fuller,
Very
the guy
famous.
who wrote the book by accident on his British expertise, which the Germans learned and the British ignored.
The Germans admired what Fuller did. They believed in his system of mechanization, which to a certain well, to a very large extent they copied, and the Panzer divisions came from that, and the Panzer divisions conquered Poland and conquered France and very nearly conquered Russia. So they admired Fuller. I don't think Fuller admired them so much. Nevertheless, Boney was a soldier. He was a politician. He might have been the defence minister in a fascist administration if it ever took power in Britain under the normal circumstances. Someone had to do the job of liaising with the British government with the German commissioner when he arrived. I picked on Boney as the only one I could think of at the time. Yeah.
Oh, he was definitely saying too.
Yeah.
Boney Fuller. Used to write articles in the Sunday Times.
He was a great writer. He was a great man.
Okay, where do the King and Queen flee in your book?
Canada, to begin with. But whether they'd have stayed here is very unlikely, and it's, I accept the hypothesis to say that Canada, being a proud country and coming on well then, that it would have been an embarrassment to her, and therefore I say that they would have moved over to the Caribbean. Try that one on, Jack. Where do you go from that one?
Oh, surely in 1939, 1940, you don't think it would have been politically desirable for the Canadian government to have the exiled British monarch here?
I think Mackenzie King might have been fussed about it. I think there might have been elements here who would. This is being talked about. You were making your own way, moving to a form of independence. This is a good moment to talk about this at the moment. But anyway, possible. And it certainly has been put around that it's much more likely that he would have been taken along to somewhere like
and you leave
like this.
you leave the book hanging on a precipice at the end. The cabinet is assembling in Scotland, I believe, at that time.
On its way out.
And they're on its way out too.
Yeah.
And the puppets would have taken over.
I think so.
But they would surely have been great resistance, one word.
Yes, a great deal of resistance, but unfortunately it would have been disarmed.
By the Germans.
And inexperienced.
Kenneth Macksey, Invasion. Delightful, kind of nostalgic session on his predication about what could have happened had the Germans invaded in July 40. Thank you, Kenneth. Next,
Thank you, Jack.
Nana Mouskouri. Had a very pleasant chat up the other day with the incomparable million record salesperson Nana Mouskouri. Very nice, you'll enjoy it. Come with me to coin a phrase from her latest album and meet a genuine, legitimate, 100% international superstar about whom I can be nothing but nice. So what we're going to try and do today with the Nana Mouskouri is see if she'll let down her guard and tell us what makes her tick. You've had another wonderful session in Vancouver.
Yes.
Every single seat sold out in advance.
That was marvelous, yes.
Same all across the country?
Yes, it was 3 months before camp. It was full.
Now, Nana, you've been... I'm not going to talk about your singing. I want to talk about you.
Yes.
How old are you?
45 summers and winters.
But the summers seem to have beaten out the winters because you don't make a day more than, what shall I say to be nice, unusual for me, 35, eh?
I think you are as old as you feel like being, and I just don't, I mean, I don't think that I'm getting old, not yet anyway.
You're getting better, you're not getting older.
I better try to be better, that's very important, you know.
But when you're on a killing schedule like this, tell me some of the things you hate about traveling.
Well, the first of the things I don't like is the air conditioning. This is terrible because you get in a hotel and it blows, and you get to a theater, it blows, and so. Anyway, I don't like so much luggages.
And you pick up, I mean, poor old me, if I'm in air conditioning for too long, I get bronchitis.
Oh, I'm so happy you speak about that because, you know, when I speak about bronchitis, there are some people saying, what's that? They don't know what it is, but you have to be like you have to use your voice, or like a singer, to be able to know what is bronchitis.
I train my voice every day by screaming at people. But you train your voice. Do you practice every day?
I do, yes. When I'm on a tour, I do that before I go to the theater. I practice a little bit for half an hour, and then I go and I start singing a little bit with the voice. And that warms me up. But if I'm not on the tour, if I don't work, then I practice for about 2 hours every day.
2 hours. In your hotel room or always in the theater?
No, at home, at home.
At home?
At home also.
2 hours a day. What do you sing favorite for practicing?
Well,
Scales?
I do some scales. It's very important. Like I used to do at school in the conservatory. And then I sing certain songs that they are very good for me to use my voice.
Will you give me a scale?
Why?
Just for fun.
For fun?
Yes.
Oh.
Nana Mouskouri practicing in the bathroom.
No, never.
Never?
Never in the bathroom, no.
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 Always in the theater or at home in the garden.
Well, you see people that they don't sing, they like to sing in the bathroom because the sound is amplified in the bathroom, and that makes them having a big voice. But a singer has to be in the reality.
The reality of the singing world.
And hear your...
Listen, before we get away from air conditioning, are you a nightmare to hotel management? You go in and you say, turn off that air conditioning, bring up my portable humidifier?
Well, I'm a nightmare to the theaters, I think, much more than the hotels, because in the hotels I have the impression that the people, they must do that very often. But in the theaters also they do that. Singers, they do have this problem, but I must be a nightmare for the theaters, because they think that the people are in the hall, they are warm, and they need to have the air conditioning.
And you're standing there getting the cold, wintry blast.
Breathing all this cold while I'm perspiring is terrible.
And you notice in the lovely hotels you stay in nowadays, no windows open? You can't open a window here?
Well, I think with the problems we have nowadays, one day we have to decide to breathe the air even if it's polluted.
Haven't really got much option, have we?
No.
Now, Nana Mouskouri, the first time, when did you start singing? What age?
I started to sing when I was about, I went to the conservatory when I was about 13 or 14 years old.
This is in Greece?
Yes, because I really wanted to sing, and that was the best way for me to learn how and what. And I studied music with it and everything that it is around. And I've been at the conservatory for about 8 years.
Did you come from a kind of wealthy, middle-class family?
Not at all wealthy. My parents, they were very middle-class people. I mean, we had a good life, but not extraordinary.
And in 1961 or thereabouts, you went to Germany?
Well, yes, that was the first time I went, because they heard me singing, and I did a film with songs. I was very popular. It was my first year of popular in Greece, and I went to present the film and the songs. And this film got a first prize in the Berlin Festival, and they asked me to record in German. I didn't speak the language at the time, but I did record all the songs in German. And a year later, I was having my first golden record outside Greece.
Was that White Roses?
That was White Rose of Athens, yes.
White Rose of Athens?
Yes, which in German was Weiße Rosen aus Athen. It was, yeah.
Once more with feeling? Weiße Rosen?
Aus Athen.
Aus Athen.
Yes.
Athens.
Athens,
Athen,
yes.
yeah.
Athen, yeah.
You sing in how many languages? Stagger me.
Well, Greek, first of all, German, Italian, French, English, 5.
5, not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Listen, I saw you make a little remark the other day, and you were quoted in the
Yeah.
papers. And we're very parochial in Canada, you know, we're very
Yeah.
small-minded. Big country, small minds.
You think so?
Well, in some ways.
Yeah.
You made a remark that you weren't very happy with the Toronto O'Keeffe Centre.
Oh.
What was it? Tell me.
Well,
Because
no.
I know the facilities
No,
in Vancouver
yes.
were magnificent except for the air conditioning.
Yeah, no, I was saying that in Canada there are beautiful theaters, and it is true what I'm saying. It's very rare that you find across the country, in a country across, so many good theaters, and this is the case in Canada. And I was saying, except from Toronto, which it is a nice hall to look at, the O'Keeffe Centre, but it is a very hard stage and hall to sing, because the conception of the hall is that sometimes the architects that they do the halls, they don't put themselves on stage and they don't hear themselves applauding. That's a very important thing for an art. So the Gift Center is a long hall with a very big orchestra pit in front of you. So the people are very far away and you don't have contact as easy as you have in a hall like the Queen Elizabeth. You see, the people, they are there, they're in front of you, you're surrounded, there is a height. It's very important to have a height in a hall. You know, as a singer, it's normal, it looks up most of the time. It's a very nice feeling.
And it's also very important to have this contact with...
Absolutely, you know, you have the contact, you see the people, you feel them, you hear them. While in the Gift Center, but I mean...
This may be a silly question, but in a smaller hall, do you sing to a person or to the whole room?
No, it's very strange. I always sing to one person, even when there are 3 or 4, or in Toronto Place there were 14,000 people when we did last year, and it was lovely. I sing to a person because it's, for me, I just face, in that face, all the whole, you know, it's, for me, it's one face representing the whole.
Man, woman or child, doesn't
Whatever.
matter?
No, it does not matter.
If you get the glint in your own
Yes,
eyes, you can
yes.
make the contact.
Yes, I face. It's a beautiful thing, you know, to have a face, because you can't see everywhere, you're occupied, but if you find one face and you look at it, that reflects you everything.
You know, I forgot to ask you earlier on, when you're traveling and whatnot, are you confined to hotel rooms and theaters, or do you get out and see the country at all?
Sometimes I do. That depends. That depends from the schedule, you know, if it's not very hard. Because, you know, you live when you're on a tour, you live for the concert in the evening, and you can't spend yourself by walking around.
Nana, if I may call you Nana,
Please do.
come with me during a commercial break, and we'll come back to Nana Mouskouri again after the break. Nana Mouskouri, you admitted to me you're 35 going on 45, 45 going on 35. How do you keep fit? There are, God knows how many thousand women look at Nana Mouskouri and think, she travels like a mad fiend when she's touring. She eats hotel food. She keeps her figure, her complexion, and her hair. What is your regimen for successful health as a, you know, big international star?
Well, I don't like this international star. But anyway,
don't be so modest.
I think a life for an artist is like an athlete. It's like everything in life. You don't have to be only an athlete to have a discipline, but this is what it is. You know, you have to have a discipline, and I think this is part of me being in a certain way, because I have to eat good food.
What do you eat?
But I don't eat a lot, but I do eat, and I love eating. But I try to eat, not every day though. I eat eggs, I eat food, protein, meat, or salads. I love salads.
Do you drink?
Yes, I drink, but only after the concert.
And
Never
just
before. No.
Not Retsina.
I love to drink red wine, and sometimes after the concert, I have just a small zip like of whiskey. Glenfiddich. How do you say?
You learned your lesson well, Glenfiddich. And of course, you steal the occasional cigarette.
No, I don't smoke. I never smoked.
Disgusting habit, isn't it?
Well, you know, some people do smoke, and there are a few that smoke around me, but I just talk to them, and little by little, there are very few that they smoke nowadays, because there's nothing good about it. I don't think it's anything good, and I think smoking is just a habit, like it's automatic, it's unconscious. People, they smoke without thinking. So it's really, why should I do it? I mean, I never had the feeling for smoking.
You were just lucky, if I may say so.
Well, I tried when I was a young girl, you know, like all young people, I tried to smoke, and it was nice to hold a cigarette like that. But then I always coughed, and I thought there's no taste in it. And for me, it's good not to smoke, because for a singer, it's not a very good thing.
And don't want to pry about people, but tell me about your experiences with Belafonte when you first sang with him and what you...
Oh, it was one of the most wonderful things that could happen in a young singer like me. Harry has been for me a teacher, I can say. I learned a lot from Harry. He's a great artist. He has a lot of respect for his audience. He's respect for what he's doing. He has a wonderful taste. So I really learned a lot.
You worked with him, what, by accident on one occasion? Or?
No, he heard me. He was on tour in Europe, and he came to Greece, and he heard me singing there. And I think when he came back to the United States afterwards, he wanted to change his show, have some new guests. So he thought of me, and he tried to contact people to get me to the United States. And he did it through my record company. And the only way he found me was with my glasses, because he said, I know this girl, I don't remember the name, but she's wearing glasses.
Same kind of glasses?
Almost, yes. I have these glasses for about 12 or 13 years now, but this style, but it was similar to that.
Your glasses are part of your trademark. Your voice and your glasses and your looks.
Yes, but the glasses, they were not meant to use it as a gimmick or so. It was for me to protect myself against concessions in this business. When I became first very well known, people in the business, they thought I should change and change the color of my hair, have a hairstyle that's very effective to the people, very, very striking, or not wear the glasses because it's not very attractive. So I thought that what's important is what you do and how you do it, and not how you look. So my glasses, I need them to walk. I wear them every day, all the time, so I wear them on stage. There are hundreds and thousands and millions of people in life that they wear glasses. Why not me?
Of course not. Now, of course, your singing career is, the length of it for the future is limited only by nothing. You will go on singing. I'm trying to say clumsy. You will go on singing forever, is that right?
I don't know.
Are you going to retire?
I don't know. There was a time that I thought I wanted to retire about 4 or 5 years ago, because, I don't know, it was a difficult situation for me in my life, and I thought maybe I should stop singing, but I realized that it was so important for me to go on stage and sing.
What would you do?
Oh, I could do a lot of things. I could stay home and take care of my children and draw. I love drawing. I just do a lot of handwork. I make embroidery. I mean, I can use my time doing nice things.
Isn't the recognition part of the whole attraction, apart from your singing and your success? Isn't the recognition essential for somebody like you?
Well, it is. The recognition, it is to the fact that you want to exist in life and to have a success and be loved. It's existing. Mm-hmm. And it is, for me, very important. That's the way you become somebody and you exist. But I think the most of it is that singing is so important because I love singing, first of all, and I love being on stage and sharing with people moments.
That's why you'll never retire. You're living
unless I can't sing well anymore. The day I will not sing, I have to stop.
The day you feel you will then stop. But you just brought out a new record, Come With Me. Is it your record company?
It is not my record company. It's a Canadian company, Grand Records. Yes, and it is, I think, their first record. And it's a record recorded in North America by an American producer. And
obviously it's a good record.
It really is.
Will sell like the others.
So. I hope so.
You're a kind of non-political Greek, aren't you? You're a Greek citizen still.
Yes, of course.
And kind of non-political.
Well, there are very few Greeks that they are non-political because, the Greek people, they build politics every day.
To be loud.
Very loud.
That's right.
But, and it's not that I'm not political. I have my political ideas but I never went into publicly because it's a very strong responsibility. And I must say that the experience with the politicians nowadays is very depressing. So I wouldn't like to. It is.
I should push you on that, but I won't. But you'll never do a Mouskouri.
No, I will not. Well, it's a different thing because she belongs to a family that were politicians, and she aimed to become one also. But I would never become that thing. I think it's a great responsibility to attract people towards something that you cannot produce yourself. You depend on others.
Nana Mouskouri, back to Switzerland when?
The day after tomorrow.
Back in Canada when?
It will be in the East Canada next year.
Next year?
Eastern Canada.
Not the West?
No, the West the year after.
The year after,
year
2
goes-
years back to Vancouver.
Yes.
Am I right remembering something from the army, a Greek word called andaxi?
And that's
What does it mean?
It's okay.
Okay.
Yes, that's
Andaxi.
right. Andaxi.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't forget Glenfiddich.
No, Glenfiddich. Yeah, Glenfiddich.
Delightful person, Nana Mouskouri. A most enjoyable interview. Nice not to be sitting trying to provoke someone into screaming and shouting. What a change, is it not? And I'll be back right after the break. Tell me, Gladys, you were born after the war.
Just about.
Did you find that guy Macksey quite intriguing or not?
Well, I would find it interesting because I like the history of World War II.
Well, if the invader comes, you now know what to do
Yes.
and how to do it.
I
If
shall
you
watch
see
for
any
people in
suspicious-
grey uniforms.
That's right, and tell a military policeman or an officer or an ARP warden over the good old days. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. precisely. A special tonight. If the invader comes, what to do and how to do it. Don't miss it. If the invader comes, what to do and how to do it tonight.